Hello, Gamecock fans. I'm Spencer Ball.
And I'm JP Barry. Welcome to Ball Don't Lie, SGTV's premier live sports show.
JP and I will be giving you our weekly insight every Friday.
This week on the show, we're telling you everything you need to know leading up to the Super Bowl.
And later, we'll be previewing Cock Hockey's upcoming playoff matchups.
Be sure to stick around until the end for college basketball coverage and this week's edition of Head to Head Pick'ems.
And without further ado, welcome to Ball Don't Lie.
Welcome to the Kennedy Greenhouse Studio.
I'm Spencer Ball.
And I'm JP Barry.
This is the one where there's a right answer and there's a wrong answer.
I'm always the get-back game guy.
There's so many teams with so many good wins.
Because, they love seeing Clemson lose no matter what.
Well, I think there's a lot of people that love seeing Clemson lose.
Yeah,
Return of the King released 20 years ago today. There you go. And for that reason, give me the Noles.
I like being right more than I like being happy.
I think the committee made the right choice.
Florida State did not lose a football game. It's football. This is college football. How can you not be romantic about baseball? It's just such a tremendous sport.
It's time. Is it time?
I think it's time.
This is Ball Don't Lie.
The biggest game in all of football is finally here. This Sunday, the Kansas City Chiefs are set to defend their Super Bowl title against the San Francisco 49ers. And Spencer, it's a rematch, but I feel like America's kind of come around to this matchup because at the beginning, everyone was just so like, oh, come on, these teams. And I'm personally, I had the fatigue of seeing the same team win every year. I mean, the Chiefs, it was their sixth straight AFC Championship game appearance. And you can see there it's their fourth Super Bowl appearance in 5 seasons. But these are two of the best teams in football this season, and it should be a very fun matchup.
Yeah, even if it's not necessarily the teams that, I guess, quotation marks, America wanted to see. It's going to be a great game for football fans. I tell you what, both of these teams have been two of the most consistent over the past 5 years. And, the only difference between the Chiefs and the 49ers is the 49ers haven't been able to get it done on the big stage. And they're going to look to change that, of course, as they did lose in Super Bowl 54 in Miami, 31-20 to the Kansas City Chiefs. There's a picture of that appearance right there as Chris Jones. He's such a dominant force. He, of course, pictured with the best quarterback in the NFL, Patrick Mahomes.
It's just a little bit.
Goodness.
Although, he didn't win MVP.
He didn't win MVP. That went to our guy Lamar. Big shout out to him. But he was pretty shut down against this Chiefs defense. Steve Spagnuolo, I think that's going to be one of the keys to the game. How does he try and disrupt Brock Purdy, and how does Purdy deal with that?
Absolutely. This is the best defense, I think, of the Patrick Mahomes era. Maybe one of the best defenses in Kansas City Chiefs history. The Ravens didn't do themselves any favors by only running the ball with a running back 6 times in an entire football game against the Chiefs. I've never seen a team try to lose that much ever until I watched the Ravens against Kansas City in the AFC Championship game. But, the Chiefs, this is their 4th appearance in 5 seasons. They have a 2-1 record. They've got shellacked by Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I almost said Tampa Bay, but
he turned it into that.
It was a big showdown earlier in the year when the Ravens played the 49ers. Everyone thought, man, that's like an early season Super Bowl preview. But the script is flipped, and, we got a rematch of a game where it was a Jimmy Garoppolo attempted game-winning drive in the Super Bowl. Brock Purdy, he's a great story. I'm really excited, like you said, to see how he handles Spagnuolo's pressure. The Chiefs have really done well. The back end of their secondary, L'Jarius Sneed and all them, but the linebackers have been really, really good for them. Very, very impressed with them. Isaiah Pacheco at the running back position, especially if Jared McKinnon can't play, that's going to be huge for them. And then on the offensive line, if Joe Thuney isn't able to go, another big matchup, I think, is the 49ers defensive line, which has kind of underperformed all season long, even after they acquired Chase Young, going up against a potentially injured Kansas City offensive line.
Definitely something to look for in the linebacker core out in San Francisco. Super special. Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw. Those guys just absolutely get after it. And I think it's going to be interesting, as you mentioned, that Super Bowl with the Chiefs in Tampa Bay. Mahomes, I think he ran 500 yards, in the pocket. They, tracked how much he ran. And you saw how that impacted the score. Tampa walked all over him. But that's the kind of defensive performance you have to rattle Patrick Mahomes and kind of disrupt this Chiefs offense that's been one of the best in the NFL for, 6 or 7 years in a row now.
Yeah, and that Tampa Bay defense was historically great. They had some just outstanding players, and they're still really good. That's why they were in the playoffs this year. That's why they shellacked the Philadelphia Eagles in the way they did. But the 49ers offense is definitely, I think, the best Kansas City has faced all year, and it's going to put them to the test. Justin Reed going up against Brandon Ayuk there in the slot maybe a little bit. Ayuk had that crazy catch off the face mask of the Lions player to kind of spark that comeback in the NFC Championship game. It's the second appearance in 5 seasons for the 49ers. One of the more storied franchises in NFL history. It's like a new kids on the block in Kansas City versus the old guard and the 49ers. Of course, Joe Montana and all them won so many Super Bowls. They went there with Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah, they did all right.
They did a little bit. But, that was so long ago. It was before the Super Bowl was even played in February. So, we'll get to see if Deebo Samuel, he seems to be rearing up and ready to go. Javon Kinlaw, 2 South Carolina players on the 49ers, as well as South Carolina State's Javon Hargrave. There's a lot of the Palmetto State stake in the Super Bowl, as well as
former Panthers, of
Christian
course.
McCaffrey. He didn't win MVP, but he had an incredible season as he ended up with almost 1,500 rushing yards, 2,000 all-purpose yards, a ton of touchdowns, second only to Raheem Mostert in total touchdowns on the season. So how are the Kansas City linebackers going to be able to contain him, especially in the passing game? Brock Purdy's going to look to him and George Kittle a lot in checkdowns. But I'm pretty excited. I've come around to it. It's the last football game for 7 months, so I'm going to have to like it, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And instead of complaining, throw on the TV and, hope it's a good game. I think that's all you can do. And I do think it's shaping up to be a really good one. I believe Kansas City's favored by 1.5 points out in Vegas, if I'm not mistaken, which
is where the game's being played.
Might be the opposite. We're getting word it's the 49ers by 1.5. My bad. Again, I don't know how. It's betting against Patrick Mahomes is something that I don't think I'll understand.
To gamble would do.
Yeah, it's not a great idea, but moving over to the Music City, Cock Hockey expects to make some noise at the College Hockey South Regional Playoffs out in Nashville. JP, this is a team we got to cover this past Friday, didn't we?
Absolutely. It was a great game, back and forth. The Gamecocks came all the way back. Georgia retook the lead. The Gamecocks tied it, sent it to overtime, and then a game winner off the stick of Marco Pineda. Just what a rip that was. And man, the Gamecocks, Cock Hockey has had a long run of excellence, but this year may be one of their best just in general. As you can see there, third in the College Hockey South, a very stacked division with the likes of Alabama and Georgia.
And Tampa.
And Auburn. They had 4 of their 5 teams qualify for the AAU tournament, which is really impressive. And it all starts, last year they lost, the goalie name has just escaped me.
Can't bring it in. We're
this is terrible.
Dementia riddled up here, I guess.
But Tyler Tamoyan, he stepped in for Zach Hayes, who struggled to start the year, starting in the crease. But he has just really kind of risen up to the occasion. A perfect 9-0-0 record with a .924 save percentage and a 2.21 goals allowed average. And then it's a plethora of scoring coming from just a great depth of players. Of course, you have John Riggins off the wing there with almost 20 goals on the year. The assists piling in from guys like Tommy Marvin, Carson Skove, and Jake Pushkar. And when you have that depth, that talent, anyone can step up at any time. We didn't even mention guys like Bobby DeCicco. It's really quite special.
The players they just seem to have an endless cast of guys who are just super beneficial to the team. But JP, what's truly amazing about all 4 of those guys actually all 5 of them, none of them are seniors.
Absolutely.
Not one of them. They're going to keep coming back year in and year out, and they're really building something special. Of course, out at the Plex in Irmo, and SGTV brings you those broadcasts on behalf of Black Dog Entertainment. It's so much fun to watch this team go out there and perform. It's so much fun seeing hockey in the South. It's just incredible. And they're going to be rematching Georgia tonight at 8 p.m. out in Tennessee. JP, who you got in this one?
It's going to be a lot of fun, and it's hard to beat a team twice in in the same week almost.
And they're 1-1 on the season, by the way. Georgia did have the first strike in the very first game of the season back in September.
So this is the best of three decision maker in this rivalry, and I'll never bet against cock hockey. I think South Carolina's going to get it done out in Nashville.
Absolutely.
And Spencer, we've talked a lot about football and hockey, but I mean it's February. The calendar, we're getting a little bit close to a certain month. After the break, we're going to talk all about this weekend in college hoops.
Commercial is in.
What a segue.
Yeah, I like the checking the calendar on your wrist.
Watch So Stupid, it got a calendar on it.
You can have more time.
20 seconds, we're good.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Hey, dude, I don't know why I'm on it.
That's all right. Maybe you didn't sleep.
I
Let's
didn't.
go. Let's go. Fire it.
That sweet tea gonna hit.
Mm-hmm. Tomorrow, the newly ranked Gamecocks look to take home their 7th straight SEC win against the Vanderbilt Commodores. And JP, this team has just caught fire.
Absolutely. I mean, they started off the year, they kind of dominated a poor non-conference schedule, lost to the best team they played in Clemson, and people were like, well, let's see how they adjust to SEC play. They're now 8-2 and tied for first place in the SEC, a conference that the media and the metrics really love, and it's all behind the depth that Lamont Paris, I think, has developed here. You can get scoring from a true freshman like Colin Murray-Boyles, but you also have your senior transfer portal acquisitions like Talon Cooper and BJ Mack, who bring just a level of experience, especially in these late game situations. Miles Studi, of course, pictured there. In these late game situations, they're able to kind of dig deep and play off their experience, and they've played big time college basketball. BJ Mack up I-26 at Wofford, Miles Studi playing for the Vanderbilt Commodores, Talon Cooper for Minnesota. They've all been in these big time matchups, taking on some highly ranked teams. They've gotten the ball late in crunch time situations, so they don't. Hey, when you stare into the abyss and the abyss stares back and you don't blink, that's the testament of a true warrior, and South Carolina has about 18 true warriors on this team. We started against Ole Miss. Ole Miss came flying in with a crazy comeback in South Carolina. They turned to a true freshman. Colin Murray-Boyles stepped up with a huge block on a 7'5" superstar for Ole Miss to secure the victory. And when guys don't have it going shooting-wise, Meechie Johnson had 8 assists against the Rebels. B.J. Mack was a lockdown defender, pulled down some crucial rebounds. So when those guys, are struggling shooting the ball, they're still able to impact the game in other ways.
Absolutely. It's such a team effort. It's really not a one-man show in the slightest. Murray-Boyles has led the team 2 straight games. He's had 16 in back-to-back performances. And Meechie Johnson, something you mentioned, his passing ability, he's still on the season the team's leading scorer, averaging 14.5. But over the last 3 games, he has 17 assists with only 1 turnover. He's getting it done in the passing department, and that's kind of what this team is. They're selfless. They play together, and the results speak for themselves. JP predicted 14th, dead last in the SEC. Now they're tied for first. They've got Vanderbilt this Saturday, and next Wednesday they've got the Auburn Tigers.
Yeah, Auburn coming off of a huge win against Alabama where they smoked Nate Oates and the Crimson Tide out there on the plains. But, when South Carolina is able to force the game into their play style, you saw it on that graphic, they're the 12th slowest offense in terms of tempo in the country. And, when you're able to limit possessions like that, I equate it to a well-run triple option attack from a service academy, because you're able to limit the possessions, limit the amount of scoring opportunities that these other teams have. In South Carolina, a team very skilled at not just getting offensive rebounds, but preventing other teams from getting them as well. So you give yourself extra possessions while stealing possessions from your opponent. You really limit their opportunities, especially in the second half. The longer you lead, the more pressure goes on the other team to start forcing things, trying to score, cut into that lead, because they know their opportunities are going to be limited going forward. And when you can get into the head of your opponent like that, it's really insane. And, we go from one South Carolina team on a crazy streak to another as the Gamecock women's basketball has a nation's best win streak is going to be tested this weekend when the Yukon Huskies come to Colonial Life Arena to face the still unbeaten women's team. And the Gamecocks, it's a game for the ages. Spencer, take it away.
I mean, this is what every women's basketball fan just lives for. I mean, UConn comes to town. South Carolina, 52 straight home victories. I mean, they're just unbelievable in the regular season. A perfect 22-0 on the year. UConn sits at 20-4, undefeated in Big East play. And it's not only a battle between two amazing teams, and South Carolina's kind of cementing themselves as a great women's basketball franchise, but it's a battle between two of the best coaches we've ever seen in the women's basketball game.
Absolutely. Dawn Staley, the strongest coach of today, versus Gino, the strongest coach in history. He got his 1,200th win on Wednesday. He's just the third head coach in the history of college basketball, both men's and women's, to achieve that feat, joining Coach K and Tara Vanderveer of the Stanford Cardinal, who overtook Coach K for the all-time lead with 1,206 wins this season. But Gino is the first one to do it all at one program, leading the Huskies all of this way. And UConn, it wasn't always like this so far this season. They started the year 4-3 with some tough blowout losses, but man, they've really bounced back, winning 16 of their last 17, with the one loss being at home to Hannah Hidalgo and the Fighting Irish a couple weeks ago. Absolutely,
and getting Paige Beckers back is, you can't talk about that enough, because she's incredible and kind of just bouncing back from some big time injuries.
Oh, yeah.
But having her back is, she's kind of the lifeblood of this team. But a huge story for the Gamecocks is Camila Cardoso is going to be out. She is with the Brazilian national team right now, trying to qualify for the Olympics. She missed last night's game against Missouri, where the Gamecocks did win by about 40 points.
Yeah.
They handled business against the Zoo, but it's against UConn, a team that's going to have a much more size, a lot more physical presence on the interior. Having Cardoso not there is going to be huge, but there's definitely a great supporting cast there to fill in her stead.
Absolutely, and like you said, Paige Beckers, she missed all of last season with a knee injury and was missing parts of the 2021-2022 season. She's up to 20 points per game on the year with 4.5 rebounds, 3.8 assists, 2.3 steals, over a block per game, while also shooting nearly 45% from three-point range.
Sounds pretty good to me.
Even after missing all the time, she still remains one of the best players in all of college basketball. But then you also have their forward, Aaliyah Edwards, who, a lot of teams, especially in these big games, you get into it and they don't have the size or the talent to compete with what South Carolina has out there. UConn is one of those programs that definitely can. But the Gamecocks, something that's different about this team than last year's, we've talked about it a lot, it's their ability to go inside out. They'll get it down into the post to one of their many, many forwards, and they'll establish that post play, which we've seen from the Gamecocks year in, year out. But then they can dish it out to someone like Bree Hall or Raven Johnson at the three-point line to knock it down. Bree Hall shooting over 45% from three on the season, with Raven Johnson, just being one of the all-around best players in college basketball. She's got 9 points per game, over 5 assists, 2.3 steals, and almost 40% three-point shooting. She's really kind of a Swiss Army knife for South Carolina, one of their most important players. And, with Cardoso out, I feel like this is a great stage. We've seen a lot of Malaysia Fulwiley so far this season, but this could be her real opportunity to make herself known as the next star of South Carolina women's basketball.
Absolutely. This is the biggest stage. The game is sold out at Colonial Life. I can't wait to watch it. It's going to be so much fun. And, JP, every week we decide what graphics we're going to make, and we're like, well, if Clemson beats UNC, we'll give them a graphic. And the Tigers will try to stay hot after a huge upset in the Dean Dome just this past Tuesday. And, man, they look good.
Yeah,
they really did.
I kind of imbued the graphic with something when I put those pictures from the one game Clemson has ever won up there in Chapel Hill. They moved to 2-60 all time. Lightning did in fact strike twice, and for the Tigers, it was kind of a long time coming. They're 5-6 in ACC play. They've struggled with a lot of close losses, some poor luck in games. PJ Hall has struggled shooting the three ball immensely, and it all kind of came to a head in what is honestly the biggest win, I think, of the regular season, maybe in Clemson men's basketball history. Going on the road against the number 3 Tar Heels, PJ Hall putting in a Player of the Year type performance, 25-9, 4 of 10 from deep. But man, I feel like we've said it every time. Every time we watch Clemson, we're like, man, if the Gamecocks just have someone like Ian Shefflin, he's a guy that when he's on the team that you hate, he's your least favorite player, but you die for him if he was on yours. And he put in another gritty 14-11 with a steal as well. Tremendous defense there against Armando Bacot.
If you counted the amount of times he hits the floor during a basketball game, I mean, you'd run out of fingers pretty quick. The guy is just everywhere. He's diving all over the floor. But something that I was surprised about watching the game, it was UNC kind of disrespecting P.J. Hall's three-point ability.
Yeah, they sagged off him. They went under
really
screens.
Collapse and just sell out and let him shoot. 4 for 10. He clearly did well enough. They come out with the victory, and it was just not a great scheme, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And, the spacing that Hall provided allowed for Joe Girard to really kind of have his best game as a member of the Clemson Tigers. He's had some inconsistent performances. He's had a really great game and then a couple bad ones, a mediocre one. But Joe Girard chipped in 21 points on 5 of 10 shooting from deep. Against UNC the first time I was there at Little John Coliseum, Hall and Girard combined to shoot 5 for 23. And then, just from three-point range, they were 9 of 20 against UNC in the Dean Dome. So just a great bounce-back performance from them. I've seen them jump from like an 8 and 9 seed all the way back up to a 5. It turns into another, South Carolina. One of their 3 losses, 2 of them are to 2 of the best teams in college basketball, Clemson and Alabama, that are being highly respected in the seed lines. And the Tigers, their metrics look good, but the future is a tough road for them. And Joe Girard, as we mentioned, he has a homecoming of sorts this weekend as the Tigers are going to go up to Syracuse at the JMA Wireless Dome. It used to be the Carrier Dome, which is what I know it as. Syracuse, a great defense. They're 10-1 at home. It'll be a tough matchup. And then they're going to go play Miami at home. In the ACC, it's never an easy matchup unless you're playing Louisville or perhaps Notre Dame, as much as it hurts to say. But, we've talked a lot about the Palmetto State in this week's episode, but, the hardwood, it's not just here in South Carolina, as outside of the Palmetto State, Kentucky and Gonzaga are facing off in an out-of-conference matchup that could shake up the NCAA tournament picture. Spencer, we usually don't see these big-time non-conference games late in the season. Gonzaga and Kentucky, 2 teams that have kind of struggled, compared to what we usually expect from them. What are you thinking about this matchup? 4 o'clock on CBS.
I mean, I know where I'll be. I'll be seated and watching the game. I mean, it sounds like a great matchup, although we maybe would have expected these teams to be a little bit better, as Kentucky sits at number 17, Gonzaga unranked after coming in the preseason number 8. Just really haven't put it together again. As you can see, 0-5 in quad 1 games. That's not something you want on your tournament resume, looking to get into the big dance. But this team has proven Mark Few's one of the best coaches in the nation. They have a really solid defense, and it could cause problems for Kentucky, who, I mean, on the flip side, do not have a very solid defense. We talked about that whenever they just kind of got demolished by South Carolina, just giving up easy look after easy look.
Absolutely. The funny joke all season long now for Kentucky has been they have a Final Four caliber offense and a round of 64 caliber defense. And, they've dropped 11 spots in the polls. A win at home against Gonzaga, I think, would go a long way towards righting the ship. But for Gonzaga, this is one of their last opportunities to make a statement to the selection committee. They're barely on any brackets I've seen. They're very firmly in the bubble, and it's a stacked bubble this year in college basketball. I mean, they're really kind of the 3rd best team in the West Coast Conference. They're tied for 2nd with San Francisco. After this game, they have just 2 quad 1 win opportunities remaining against St. Mary's, who's just been a force to be reckoned with out there in the West Coast. And then the San Francisco Dons, who they're tied with for 2nd place. They're still a good team, but I'm interested to see the matchup of styles. Kentucky likes to go fast. Gonzaga's a little bit of a slow-it-down team more. Kentucky's very skilled with their guards, but struggles a little bit with big man play. Gonzaga's going to space the floor with their big men. They have 2 forwards, I think, that shoot over 40% from 3, if I can find it here.
They sure do.
Yeah, Graham Ike, who scores 15 points per game, as well as Anton Watson, who shoots 44.4% from beyond the arc. Kentucky's bigs are not used to guarding guys who can kind of score from beyond and inside. So it's going to be how they adjust to that. 2 of the best coaches in college basketball history with Calipari against Mark Few. It's got top flight billing on CBS on Saturday. I'm really excited for it. two teams that are in desperate need of a win. And then, it's going to be fun watching someone like Antonio Reeves or Reed Shepherd guard Nolan Hickman. And I think a big key for this game is, can Ryan Nembhard finally make a big impact for Gonzaga? They got him out of the transfer portal after he left the Creighton Blue Jays. And he just hasn't really been the impact player many thought he would be out there in Spokane. And, it's a great opportunity, I think, for him to really kind of make his mark. Teams are not scoring well from two-point range against Gonzaga, while Kentucky is able to drive to the hoop very well. We'll see how Big Z is kind of utilized. He's been up and down so far. But this is a game that I'm really excited for. I think it could be the best game of the entire weekend across all sports.
It really has that potential, but I think both teams are going to have to perform. Otherwise, it could kind of slide into a one-sided affair on either side. Both teams kind of have that potential of just blowing the other one right out of the water. But that's all we've got for you today, and we'll be right back after the break with this week's Pick'ems to wrap up this episode of Ball Don't Lie.
Welcome back to Ball Don't Lie Pick'ems. But before we get to the show, some breaking news on Ball Don't Lie. Bill O'Brien is leaving the offensive coordinator position at Ohio State, which he was just hired at a few weeks ago to become the new head coach at Boston College. Jeff Hafley left the Eagles, not the Golden Eagles. I got Marquette on the mind because of my tie. But he left the Eagles to become a head coach for the Green Bay Packers. And so now Ohio State's going to be searching for an offensive coordinator in a do-or-die year for Ryan Day. We'll have more college football coverage on the next season of Ball Don't Lie. But let's get to the pick'ems here. At the start of Week 3, Spencer is ahead at 11 wins and 5 losses. Well, I sit at 8-8 on the year in the eternal. I can't remember.
Someone's got to be at 500. It might be you this season.
He used to coach the Titans and the Rams.
Jeff Fisher.
Jeff Fisher. I'm Jeff Fisher. But starting with women's basketball, Spencer.
All right, South Carolina versus UConn. JP, who you got in this one?
I mean, it's a clash of the Titans. It's the old versus the new. In a raucous environment, I think Dawn Staley and the Gamecocks get it done.
I was there last year when South Carolina played LSU. That's the loudest I've ever heard Colonial Life Arena. I think they kind of bring that same atmosphere. I'm also taking the Gamecocks. Number 4, Colorado versus number 17, Oregon State. Pac-12 battle. JP, who you got?
Oregon State has been a very good story this year. The Pac-12 has been an incredible conference in women's ball this season.
They're an incredible conference everywhere.
Oh, that's so true.
Man.
As we get to college baseball, we'll be talking about the Pac-12 a lot. But in Colorado, one of the best teams, however, in the country, and it's a home game. You got to go all the way up to Boulder. That elevation is really something to fight on, and I think Colorado is going to get the win at home.
I'm taking the Buffaloes as well. They just have an incredible shooting team, and it's a balanced attack on offense. I think they'll get the win. Syracuse versus Louisville. JP, who you got?
Louisville got a big win last night on their home floor against Notre Dame. They're going on the road to a tough place to play, but I think Louisville continues their momentum and gets a big victory in the ACC.
Yeah, taking down Notre Dame is no easy feat. I'm also going to take the Cardinals as they get a big road win up in Syracuse. Number 3, NC State versus number 12, Notre Dame. JP, this one might tug at the heartstrings a little. What you got?
It might. Hannah Hidalgo and company had a ghastly shooting performance against the Cardinals, shooting 1 for 17 from beyond the arc. They're really going to have to step it up on the road against the NC State Wolfpack, a team that's kind of had Notre Dame's number the last few years in the ACC. I think they're able to dig deep and get it done. Hannah Hidalgo has already become one of the best players in the country as just a true freshman. I think Notre Dame pulls the big upset and gets themselves back into that conversation to host the first 2 rounds of the NCAA tournament.
Personally, I'm going to take the Wolfpack, but I think this might be the best women's game of the weekend. It's really tough. There's so many great matchups on the women's side of the ball, but moving on to the men's, JP.
Absolutely. As we the game we just talked about, Kentucky against Gonzaga. Spencer, who do you got? I'm
going to take the Wildcats in this one. I think Rob Dillingham's going to be too much, and I don't think Gonzaga's going to have a great answer for him.
I'm very interested in this one because it's such a clash. Gonzaga has great forwards, and their guards are a little bit of a letdown this year compared to past seasons. Meanwhile, Kentucky has excellent guard play, but their big men aren't as impressive as they've been. Remember Oscar Tshiebwe? Never thought he would leave college. But I think Gonzaga's ability to space the floor with their big men is going to let their guards kind of develop the game at an easier pace. And I think Gonzaga goes on the road and gets a huge win towards their NCAA tournament hopes.
Absolutely, and for Kansas and Baylor, Hey, this is the Jayhawks haven't let me down yet. Who are you taking?
Kansas against Baylor. We picked Kansas at home last weekend. They didn't disappoint us. They did lose to Kansas State. I think they bounced back and get a nice win over the Bears at home.
Yeah, I think the Jayhawks also take this one.
And then a huge ACC matchup on Monday night, and what is maybe the biggest game in Wake Forest basketball history since at least they had Chris Paul. It's the number 9 Duke Blue Devils against the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. Spencer, who do you got?
I'm going to take the home team here. I'm going to go with Duke. I think Cameron is one of the hardest places to win in. I think Duke's just going to have the advantage. They're, kind of still recovering from the UNC loss, and I think they'll get it done against a really good Demon Deacons team.
Yeah, it's a really tough place to play, but Steve Forbes and company have just had a great year so far. They started hammering teams in the ACC. They're top 25 in all the predictive metrics. I think Wake Forest goes on the road and gets a massive win that solidifies themselves as an NCAA tournament team. And then last but not least for college hoops, number 12 Auburn against number 15 South Carolina on Wednesday, a 6:30 tip-off on the SEC Network. Spencer, Gamecocks against the Tigers. Who do you got?
Yeah, next Wednesday at Auburn. Auburn coming off the biggest win of their season. All signs would point to them. I mean, I know South Carolina's the winning streak, but I mean the firepower, the huge win, the huge rivalry win they've just come off of. But for me, there's something about this Gamecocks team where they just find a way to win, and it's not relying on one person, and they have such a balanced attack. As you mentioned, they're going to really try and slow down the play. I think if this Gamecocks team can kind of set the pace early, I think they get it done.
I think they're going to need Meechie Johnson and B.J. Mack to go back to their old form scoring-wise, while also getting a lot of scoring output from Miles Studi, Taylon Cooper, and Colin Murray Boyles. And, I think that's just going to be hard to do on the road against an Auburn team that really is electrifying to watch. They're going to go up and down the floor. Their defense is locked down. The crowd is juiced to the gills. That's why I think Auburn's going to get it done at home. But this isn't the only, we got one more game for pick'ems, don't we, Spencer?
Hey, the last time we might talk about football unless more breaking news drops, because, we do that now. Chiefs to the 49ers, JP, who do you got in the biggest game of them all?
The Chiefs have been here. They know how to win the Super Bowl, obviously. The 49ers have a lot of guys that haven't been able to get over that hump yet. Kyle Shanahan, can he finally get the big one? I think he does. I think Christian McCaffrey has a big day. I think Brock Purdy does just enough. He doesn't make a big mistake. And I think, it's a great game, but I think the 49ers come away with it.
I'm also going to take the 49ers in this one. I know it's surprising. We talked about not betting against Patrick Mahomes, but there is no money on the line here. Just pride and Pick'em's record, which arguably is priceless. There's no value on that. But I also think the 49ers are going to come in with a crazy offensive game plan. I think they're going to find a way to kind of stifle the Spagnuolo blitz attack, which is, kind of unprecedented. But I do think they're going to get it done, and I think they're going to find a way to get to Mahomes. JP, that's going to do it for this episode of Ball Don't Lie. Be sure to follow us on Instagram, X, and Facebook at SGTV at USC.
To keep up with all of our content, be sure to also visit us online at SGTV at USC.com. For SGTV, I'm JP Barry.
And I'm Spencer Ball. From all of us here at SGTV, have a great weekend, Carolina.
Forever to thee.